Good morning, everyone. So again, it's lovely to see all of you. As usual, we'll start with a short mindful breathing exercise to bring our mind and moment in present by watching mindfully as we inhale and exhale. Then we can try to cultivate good intention of being here. By us coming here together, giving our precious time, energy to be here together, to listen, and to share, to engage in discussions, reflection, contemplations. May all of this become cause and condition to transform our mind, our heart, inspire us to follow the Bodhisattva's path, by generating loving kindness, compassion, both to the mind and wisdom. And by engaging in the practice of self-perfection and so forth. And through our practice and meditations, may we be more benefit, more help, more kind, more compassion to others and oneself. And may it be cause and conditions to achieve our own highest potential, the fully awakened state. So that we can be not only benefit, but greatest benefit and help. And not only to some sentient beings, but to each and every sentient beings. And may we always be helpful, beneficial to others, directly, indirectly, through either body, speech, mind, any of the three doors. And even we cannot be much help and benefit to others, may we never hurt and harm any beings. Okay.
So we will recite the refuge verse once in English and twice in Tibetan. I go for refuge
Until I am
enlightened
enlightened
to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I pray through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. Sangye Chodam Sakti Chodama Chanchu Partu Dami Kapsuchi Dadi Chonyan Pipe Sonam Drola Penchir Sangye Upasho Sangye Chodam Sakti Chodama Chanchu Partu Dami Kapsuchi Dadi Chonyan Pipe Sonam Drola Penchir Sangye Upasho.
Again, once more, good morning, and it's lovely to see again in persons, and of course, many of you online. And so during the Sundays, we have been kind of following one particular important and well-known short text by one of the great Indian masters, Atisha, and known as the Lamb of the Path to Enlightenment. And we are in a chapter where on the Bodhisattva path, the Mahayana Bodhisattva path, on that chapter. And again, the very heart of the whole Bodhisattva path is cultivating the altruistic intention of the Bodhisattva mind, and out of great compassion and loving kindness to each and every sentient beings, the wish to achieve your highest potential, the fully awakened, fully enlightened state. And so some other practice are a preliminary practice as a supporting foundation, preliminary practice to cultivate that Bodhisattva mind. And some more practice. One, you cultivate that Bodhisattva mind, then how can you engage into the practice to be benefit and help to others? And so, but it come down to that, main that in order to have Bodhisattva mind, we need to have true love and compassion. That is love and compassion to all sentient beings. In order to feel that compassion, the sense of feeling others' pain, understanding, recognizing others' pain, feeling others' pain, and with that, cultivating the mind to the wish or the mind to free them from their suffering and cause of suffering. In order to have that kind of compassion, the great compassion, then first we need to have a sense of renunciations by understanding, how samsara is unbearable, miserable. As long as our existence, as long as our life is driven by the delusions and karma, there's no end to problem. There's no end to sufferings. And our experience shows that. As far as my experience, I don't know all your experience. Feel like you have solved this problem. You have gone through this pain, suffering. Probably you will not have to go through that, but again, something comes in your life, very similar, or something else. Again, you go through that. It's kind of endless, and so that as long as our birth or life exists driven by karma and the delusions, it's never ending. It's never ending. Sometimes we have some temporary relief and we feel everything just fine until we are stuck by another situations, and that is what we have going through, and that is what it is. So once we understand, being samsara and being under the control of delusion, karma is unbearable, unmiserable, then you develop a strong wish to be free from that, free from the delusion, from the karma, and that strong wish, that strong wish to free from the delusion, karma, and the result of that delusion, karma, the samsara, and the suffering of the samsara, that is the renunciations. And once you have that renunciation, then it becomes easy to feel love and compassion to any sentient beings who is in samsara, because you know that it's like you have gone through that experience yourself and you know what it is to be in that state. And you can feel their pain, their sufferings. And then when you feel their pain, suffering, then it allows our love and compassion to grow towards them. And so therefore, that is what, in order to have a bodhisattva mind, we need to have great compassion. In order to have compassion, we need to have the bodhisattva, the renunciations. And in order to have that renunciation, then, first we need to, engage in that other preliminary practice, the foundational practice of small scope. And so that is what we have all kind of went through. And when we discuss about cultivating the bodhisattva mind, and once we have cultivated bodhisattva mind, in order to stabilize and that altruistic intention of bodhisattva mind, then taking the vows, the bodhisattva's vows, and then having taken the bodhisattva vows, trying to keep them, keep them as pure as possible, and then engaging into the path, having such a wonderful intention, altruistic intention, wonderful, but if we don't go beyond that, then again we cannot reach our full potential just by that wonderful thought itself. Just by having the true love, compassion, and bodhisattva mind does not lead you to obtain your highest potential, the fully awakened, fully enlightened state. Neither just by having that good intention that you will be able to be greatest benefit to others. So in order to be greatest benefit to others, in order to achieve your highest potential, then driven by that altruistic intention, bodhisattva mind, then one should engage in the bodhisattva's practice, bodhisattva contact path. and that is engaged in the practice of, 6 perfection, 10 perfection, and 4 means of gathering the sentient beings and benefiting them. So those are some of the main doubles of the practice. And so we are in that sections. And here, the author, he does not go very detailed or doesn't really touch on three of the 6 perfections. He go detail in 3 of them, and 3 of them he doesn't mention so much here. But in commentary, you find more the lamrims who are the commentary to this one, then they will go more detailed in others. And that is one of the why we need to study. One of the reasons why I study commentary is because sometimes in the root text, certain area they don't go details. They just touch on that, or they just mention about, but they don't go details. Commentary, then you will find more details in that. And so it helps each other, it supports each other. Some of the topic subjects that has been covered very details, the commentary might not go so detailed on that because it has already explained details there. But then some of topics in root text, the author might have just mentioned about it or just touched on that, but they might not have gone in details. So then in commentary, you find more on that. And that is how commentary can be helpful when we study that. So here, those general, the practice or perfection of generosity, we already discussed last week, engage in the practice of generosity of material things, generosity of sharing your knowledge, wisdom, the generosity of giving your time, the generosity of, being your service volunteers, your skills, whatever, so there are so many different ways that we can practice generosity. There are so many different ways we can practice generosity to be help and benefit to others. And, not only being help and benefit to others, also through that practice, we also learn a lot ourselves. We also improve ourselves, we also grow ourselves spiritually. We grow through those practices. So it helps benefit others, oneself, And then the practice of moral discipline, which the author will follow, And then the practice of patience, perfection of patience. Here the author does not go in details or does not explain much, So again, we also touched on that a little bit not last week, but earlier, And again, in the patience, being patient with someone when they are being not nice to you or anyone, yourself, your friends, your families, or any sentient beings, when someone is being not nice, not kind, cruel, mean, learning to be patient with them. Meaning, being patient with them, meaning, as I mentioned before, not getting upset and angry. Not allowing your mind to be disturbed due to anger and upset and those negative feelings. Because if we can keep our mind calm, peaceful, undisturbed, without those kind of agitating minds such as anger, hateful feelings, ill will feelings, upset, it doesn't disturb your inner peace. your calmness. If you are more peaceful, calm, you are able to use your intelligence, your mind, wisdom better. And then you can decide what is the best way to respond or not to respond. Sometimes we need to respond, but we need to respond how? What's the best way to respond in the best way in long terms? And we have to use our own mind to contemplate and think. And when your mind is calm, peaceful, you are able to use better. You are able to make your more judgment better. When our mind is disturbed, agitated, do that, and we make more mistake, and we cannot use our mind better, good, judgment good. And so therefore, the patience is important, so important. The practice of patience is to keep your mind calm, peaceful, undisturbed by their behavior, their action, their attitude. On the basis of your mind calm, peaceful, and then you can, as I mentioned, then you can think about it. What's the best way to respond, not respond, how to respond? What is the best way to respond? All of that. So being patient with that. And another is being patient with our own, difficult situations, challenges, problems that can arise in our life, that we might encounter in our life, be it with physical challenges, be it emotional challenges, difficulties, be it with, circumstances surrounding around us, So that is part of our life. We always encounter different challenging circumstances, situation, time to time, And there's two ways to respond to that. Either being bitter about it, upset, angry, bitter about it, or be more patient with that, And when we become bitter and upset, because I'm having a physical challenges, because I'm having some emotional challenges, or because of certain challenges in, circumstances, challenge with other beings, challenge in our job, different things, We can either be bitter, angry, all of that, or, we can keep our mind not so bitter and angry about it, but, more peace, more calm, undisturbed, so much. And that is what the patience, patience comes. And the way to see it, by seeing something positive in that, in every challenges, every sufferings, every problems, if we look deeply, there's always, we can find something positive in that. You can always find something positive in that. And it is all about finding that positiveness. If you can find the positive, and if you focus on that positivity, your mind will be less disturbed and less angry and less bitter. If we just focus on the negative side, the bad side, then of course our mind will be more disturbed. Our mind will be more bitter and upset and angry. Because you focus on the negative side. But in everything, no matter how challenging, difficult problems, suffering, if we learn to see positive side in there, if you try to find something positive in there, there's always something positive in there. You can always find something positive in there. And it is training your mind to see the positive, learning to see the positive and focus on that positive side. And by doing that, you don't allow the negative side to overwhelm you, and thereby to be able to keep your mind more calm, peaceful. And that is the patience, to be the ability, your mind, ability to keep your mind calm, peaceful, undisturbed by the adversary circumstances, situations. So that is, and I think those are very, this practice are so crucial and important to have more happy life, more peaceful life, for ourselves, for our families, and for the world that we live in. If one more person become more patient, calm, peaceful, kind, compassion, it creates better environment, peaceful environment for the sentient, for the world. Not only individual and family, but the world itself. When one person become very upset, agitated, disturbed, a lot of anger, a lot of hatred, then that person's become a danger to not only his life, her life, not only the families, but the whole itself, the whole world itself. One person can really destroy the world itself. And they can destroy that by their anger and hatred feelings. And so that is how one person, each of us has that negative potential and positive potential. The positive potential to be the greatest benefit to the whole society, to the whole world. If we work with our mind, if we try to develop more patience, love, compassion, we can be source of happiness, not only for ourselves and our family, but for the whole world. On the other hand, if we don't take care of our mind, if we do not train our mind, if we allow, frustration, anger, and hateful feelings to manifest, then we could end up being the most dangerous person in this world that could destroy the world. So that is, and so through that understanding, putting effort to cultivate more patience and training our mind to be more patient, through practice meditations. And the other practice of one of the Bodhisattva perfections is the joyous effort in virtues. So finding enthusiasm or diligent or joyous effort into virtues, so that is one of the practice. At the moment, sometimes we find diligent enthusiasm or joyfulness in non-virtues, in non-virtues. And so changing that, transforming that. Instead of finding joy in non-virtues, transforming our mind and finding joyfulness in virtues. Instead of having enthusiasm in non-virtues, transforming to have enthusiasm in virtues. Instead of putting a lot of effort and diligent in creating non-virtues, we try to put more effort and diligence towards the virtues. So that is so finding joyful effort in our practice, in our meditations, in virtues, you know. Like ever running river, you know, all the time. The enthusiasm need to be, you know, kind of continuity. You know, sometimes we find enthusiasm in practice meditations for a day, for a week, for a month, or for a year, then we drop it. You know, then we kind of slowly, you know, we lose that enthusiasm and slowly, you know, we get less and less connected and we become more and more distant from our practice, meditation, and Dharma studies and so forth. And then, you know, and again, we get inspired and get enthusiasm. Again, we come back. And so it's like, kind of, you cannot maintain all the time. It's like if you are trying to deal with your physical health, you do a lot of exercise, diet, everything for few months, or maybe even a year, and you are in good shape. But then if you stop doing that, after a few years, again, you will go back to where you used to be. And again, you have to come back. And it is always, but instead, if you can keep continuity, that is the important continuity. You know, that is one of the, you know, your practice meditation might not be long, you know, it could be short, you know, but if you can keep continuity, then it will be more beneficial. Then, you know, doing long practices, some days, some weeks, some months, and then not doing it for long times and like that, you know. So need to have that kind of enthusiasm, the effort, diligent continuity. In many of the teachers used to say it has to be like ever running river, you know, there's always the continuity of that. And in order to have the enthusiasm, joyful effort in the virtues, you know, we have to overcome the laziness. You know, laziness is the obstacles to be diligent in our practice in virtues, to have enthusiasm in virtues in our practice. You know, so need to come the laziness. You know, and by cultivating the inspirations, you know, in that practice, in that virtues, in that meditations. And we can cultivate inspirations towards that practice, meditations, virtues, by reflecting, contemplating on the benefit of that particular practice, that particular meditation, that particular whatever that virtues is. The more you feel the benefit of that practice, the more you will be inspired or aspire to engage in that practice. You know, so that inspirations and having some level of steady mind or self-confidence. You know, having the steady mind and self-confidence in yourself, in your practice towards that particular practice, meditations, virtues, whatever that is, you know, that is important, the self-confidence that you can practice, that you can do, you know. If you have the steady mind and self-confidence, you know, then that will give you more energy, more boost. If you don't have the self-confidence and the steady mind, you know, then it might not be so inspiration, you know. You will not be so inspired, and that will not give you so much enthusiasm. So cultivating that by contemplating on our own potentials, by contemplating on Buddha nature, that we all have the potential to become fully awakened. We all have that. So therefore, we all have the potential to be, greatest compassion, most compassionate persons. We have the potential to be more wise. We have the potential to the most patience. We have the potential to be able to concentrate, without any distractions, to be able to focus. We haven't been able to develop all the potential, the internal potential. We have all that potential. So, contemplating, meditating on that, and understanding that we have that potential, and there through that understanding of the potential, then having the sense of self-confidence, more inspiration, more self-confidence. It helps to have more enthusiasm in your practice, meditations, and the virtues. And the other practice that is beneficial and helpful, and to develop that kind of enthusiasm in your practice, is cultivating, training your mind with joyfulness in your practice. Joyfulness in your practice. So it is all, I have mentioned many times, how can we find a way to enjoy your meditation, your practice? That is very key. The practice, meditations, whatever you are trying to do, shouldn't become a burden, shouldn't feel like it's a burden, and shouldn't be a source of another stress. Do you get it? We have a lot of things to do, and so it's, I have to do this, I need to do, or I haven't finished this doing. So this all becomes stressful. We have so many, and the practice of meditation shouldn't be one of those lists that, I need to do, therefore you become stressful about that. And burden. If you started becoming burdened and stressful, you are not going to enjoy it. You are not going to have the joyfulness. And if you don't enjoy it, if you don't have the joyfulness, then, it will not give you inspiration for you to continue to do it. It will not give you continuous joyfulness to continue it. And I think that is one important factor. And we all have to find a way to make it enjoyable. Sometimes, when we struggle with our practice meditation because of something, and that is why we don't enjoy, so we have to learn how to, do slightly different, how to do the same meditation without losing the essence. But that can be more suitable for you, that you become more enjoyable for it. We don't want to lose the essence of the main practice meditations. Then otherwise there's no purpose in doing that meditation. But sometimes, without losing the essence, the way we do it can be a different method, different way of doing it. And it's finding with our own experience, trying this way, that way, slightly different, and seeing something that kind of suit your mind, that something kind of fit your mind, that you started to enjoy it. And I think that is the key, And I've mentioned in the past too, there are certain practice when you read traditional meditation practice, visualization, even certain visualization, I found hard. I struggled that, So I've started to change a little bit myself. Once I changed that, I started to enjoy more, And so, so that is how we try to experiment ourselves and see. And of course, if we are enjoying how it is described by different teachers, traditionally how it's done in certain communities, of course, we just follow that. But there are certain particular techniques, meditations. Sometimes maybe it suits certain people, but it doesn't suit everyone people. And sometimes some people have struggled with that particular way of visualizing or that particular way of contemplating or whatever. And I think sometimes we don't have to really change everything, but very small, very slight changes, and that can make your practice less stressful because you don't struggle. You are, because the practice you are trying to do is kind of something that suits your way of thinking, your way of suits your mind, and so then you have less struggle, and so you enjoy more. And if you enjoy more, it inspires you to do more. Then it doesn't become stressful and burden. So that is another condition to have that joy, continue to have joyous effort in our meditation practice. And the other conditions, Shantideva explained, is learning to relax and rest. That is another important factors in our practice. When our body needs rest, we have to give rest to it. When our mind needs rest, giving rest to it, and learning how to rest it and not push yourself because, I have to do it, because I have to do it. And so finding that balance, sometimes we are very lazy and we don't put any effort. And sometimes we push too much ourselves. We push ourselves too much, and that is always a problem with us, We go one extreme to another extreme. And we struggle to find the middle way, the balance. In so many things, in so many areas. And even in the same, sometimes we become so lazy that we don't practice, we don't put effort, little bit effort, little bit of diligence to put ourselves to sit, to practice, to meditate. And sometimes we get inspired, or you feel like I have to meditate. And then, again, you push yourself too much. You push yourself so much, sometimes we can have physical breakdown. Sometimes we can have emotional breakdown, mental breakdown. Or sometimes we can have both breakdowns because you push too much. And again, when you do that, then again, that is going to be disastrous for long term. It's going to be disastrous for long term in your practice, in your path of meditations. Because then once you break down physically or emotionally or both, then, you will struggle to be able to go back and to start to practice again. And so finding that balance is like driving, Well, I guess maybe now automatic, you don't have that problem. But like the old cars, brake and accelerator, you have to balance it, Either you go or either you stop, So you have to find the right balance. How much you let go of the brake and how much you push it, And if you don't find that balance, then either it doesn't move or it just goes too fast and you are going to have accident, And same is here, in our practice measure, finding that balance. So relax, that is what I hear, resting or relaxing, when it is needed. When it is needed to push, we push a little bit because we are being lazy. And sometimes we are not being lazy, but sometimes our body or the mind sometimes maybe need to rest a little bit, need to relax a little bit, and not be too uptight with your practice meditations and, trying to be too perfect. Do you get it? Sometimes we try to we get so obsessed that my practice meditation had to be so perfect, so good. Your mind becomes too tight. And when it's too tight in that way, your mind is not relaxing. And when your mind is not relaxing, then, you are not going to have a good result. One, you will not have a good result in your practice meditation. And secondly, it wouldn't give you that kind of the joyfulness that we need. And so that is the practice of joyous effort in virtues, So it could be meditation, practice, any virtues, even when we are trying to be help and benefit to others, whether we are trying to be service to any individuals, any organizations, when you're trying to help, when you are trying to be service, having the joyfulness in that, doing that, important. Instead of being pressured to do it, doing out of guilty feelings, all of that, when you do that, there is no joyfulness in that. And, so finding the joy, whatever you do, any goodness, any virtues, any positive, either through in your mind, through meditation, or in your speech, or whether in your actions, through physically, trying to find joyfulness in doing that. So that is what joyful effort. And, the sutras, Shantidevas, and Shantideva is one of the great Indian masters, and then Chandrakirti, another great Indian master. They all, says same. Without the perseverance or joyous effort, we cannot achieve anything. We cannot success anything. We cannot achieve anything. It's only through the perseverance, hard work, joyful effort that we can success mundane and spiritual accomplishments, spiritual achievements. All for anything we need the perseverance, the diligent, joyous effort. And therefore, this Indian master Chandrakirti, he says, among all the virtues, all the virtues of joyous effort, or enthusiasm, or diligent, is the kind of the supreme virtues. Because with that virtues, you can achieve other virtues. Without that virtues, it's hard to achieve other virtues. And therefore, it's the supreme virtues, as I said. So therefore, we try to also train to cultivate that virtues in ourselves. So these are the 3 out of 6 practice of perfections, 3 that the author has not mentioned so much in the root text. So I just kind of touch on them without going so much detail. And then, 3 of others perfection, out of 6 perfection, then the author goes more detailed. So, so then we'll just follow the verses from there. And the other one is the perfection of moral discipline, the perfection of meditative concentration, and the perfection of the practice of perfection of wisdom. So these 3. And so that is the authors here go. So let me see. So is it page number 7, did you say? Mine one doesn't have page number, so is it? Yeah, so it's the last 2 verses of that, last 2 verses. If it's the page number 7, and for some reason, mine doesn't have the page number. So where it says, completely pure body, speech, and mind cause you to maintain the actual vows of engaged bodhisattvas. And by properly practicing the discipline of 3 trainings, you reverse your reverence for the 3 training grows greater. So here it's explaining, when we practice, train, to keep our 3 doors, body, speech, and mind more pure by, not having a negative thoughts, not engaging in harmful negative speech, by not engaging in a harmful negative physical actions. Instead, training our mind to have more kind, compassionate, pure thoughts, positive thoughts, and engage in more virtuous and helpful speech, and engage in the more virtuous and helpful action, physical action, by completely keeping those 3 doors pure, then it helps and cause to maintain the engage in both of the vows that one has taken. The both of the vows in essence is not to hurt and harm others, not to hurt and harm any beings, any sentient beings. It means not to hurt and harm not only others, yourself, because you are one of the sentient beings. So the core, of course there are, individual vows, but if you go to the very core essence of that is to not to engage in any intentionally any harmful, hurtful, behavior or action through any of the 3 doors, and refraining from that and engaging in helpful, beneficial 3 doors. And so when you are able to keep those 3 doors pure in that way, then of course you will be able to keep and maintain those vows, the bodhisattva vows, purely, and to be able to practice them, without breaking them, and without diluting them, without polluting them, and so here engaging into the moral discipline of the bodhisattvas, So by properly practicing discipline of 3 trainings, so here 3 training, here refer to the bodhisattvas moral discipline, The bodhisattva moral discipline, there are 3 types of bodhisattva moral discipline. One is the moral discipline of avoiding or restraining or refraining from engaging in the non-virtues or misdeed that hurts and harm others or sentient beings. That is one of moral discipline. The other moral discipline is not only you avoid and refrain from engaging in the actions that hurt and harm and sentient beings, but you engage in the discipline of helping and benefiting others. So now you go even beyond that. Not only you don't hurt and harm others, but now you try to be helpful and beneficial to others. So the discipline of benefiting and helping others. That is the Bodhisattva's practice of moral discipline, another moral discipline. So in whatever way we can be helped, whatever way we can be benefit, sometimes we can be help and benefit directly. Sometimes we can't be any help, benefit directly, And so, and then in those cases, we try to keep them in our prayer, in our heart, in our mind, send our prayer, share the dedications, keeping our meditation practice, So indirectly, we try to be help and benefit in that way, So whenever there's opportunity for us to be help and benefit, and whenever we have the capacity, ability to do that, then we try to be as much help, benefit as possible. And whenever we don't have the capacity, ability to help and benefit then directly, then we can try to do that indirectly through our prayer, meditations, practice. And then moral discipline of gathering the other virtues, And so that is, in order to be more help, greater help and benefit to sentient beings, that means others and oneself, we need to become more and more enlightened, We need to become more and more enlightened. The more and more enlightened we become, the more and more we can be benefit to others. The more and more we can be better benefit to yourself. The more and more you can take care of yourself better. The more and more you can take care of others better, the more enlightened you become. The more kind, more compassion, the more wise you become, the more, patience and so forth. So more enlightened you become. So in order to become more enlightened, then we need to engage in many, many different kind of virtues that help us to become more enlightened. And, through different practice, meditations, contemplations, purifying all the obstacles, all our negative karma, all the delusion, obscuration, accumulating the virtues of merit that are conducive conditions to the growth of our spiritual experiences and practice, So there are different practices. There are so many different virtuous practices to gather all these conducive conditions. And there are so many different practices to, purify those obstacles. And so engaging in all those different practices and virtues is the other training, moral discipline. So those are the three trainings. And once you practice in those three trainings, restraining, refraining from hurting, harming others, engaging to help and benefit others, and engage in other virtues that support those practices. When you do in those three training, then your reverence, your respect and reverence and faith, for those, this training grows greater. Then, you will have more reverence for those practice, those training. Because as you practice, you begin to see and you begin to experience the positive benefit of those training, And when you experience and when you see with your own experience the help and benefit of those training, then of course your respect to those training grow even greater. And when your respect for those training grow greater, then that also help you to have more inspired and help you to engage in the more practice and more training in that. So that is what it means here. And the next verse is that, therefore, by exerting yourself in both sorts of vows, wishing or aspiring both sorts of vows and engaging both sorts of vows, bend on pure and perfect enlightenment, So by putting effort to train yourself in those three training of the Bodhisattva's moral discipline, by training that, then then we training with a lot of effort, not only effort, joyful effort, into those training, then it leads us closer and closer to pure and perfect enlightenment, awakening, our highest, the greatest potentials, highest potential. The accumulations for complete enlightenment will be fully perfected, So, in order to obtain or achieve our highest potential, the fully awakened state or fully enlightened state, one need to gather the two collections, accumulate or gather two collections, the collections of wisdom and the collection of the merit. And sometimes, I have a little bit hesitation to use the word merit, but I cannot find the right words, English word for that. So, that is the problem, because for a lot of the Westerners, when they hear the merit, because of how it is used in normal, so they have different understanding of that, and due to that, sometimes there's a misunderstanding of that. The two collections, the collections of virtues, virtues, which are part of the method of virtues, and the wisdom, and when we train in the practice, such as those three training and six perfections, then, by training the wisdom, then you collect, you accumulate a collection of the wisdom, and by training the other practices, such as generosity, moral discipline, patience, joyous effort, and meditative concentration, then we accumulate the collections of the merit of all the virtues, and those two are needed. The two collections are the main cause that lead to that fully awakened, fully enlightened state. And and so up to here, then he explained about the training in moral discipline, okay? The training, the perfection of moral discipline. And next, then is a training in, next is in the training in the perfection of karma abiding or meditative concentrations. So in terms of that, then first he explained why we need to cultivate, why we need to train and develop this meditative concentration or karma abiding, why we need it, why this, you can say, why this spiritual experience or these inner qualities or this state of mind need to be developed. And so in terms of that, and he's all the Buddhas says that the cause for completing the accumulations, whose nature of merit and wisdom, so that are two collections, is the development of higher knowledge. So here he mentions, Atisha mentions, in all the sutras and Tantric teachings by the Buddhas, all the Buddhas has explained very clearly, in order to achieve fully awakened state, fully enlightened state, one need to accumulate the two collections, the collection of merit and wisdom. And in order to collect in order to accumulate two collections and perfect those two collections, then one need to develop, higher knowledge. Without higher knowledge, it will be very difficult to accumulate the two collections. Without accumulating the two collections, the collection of merit and the wisdom, then one cannot achieve fully enlightenment, your ultimate spiritual goal, And so therefore, one needs to develop higher knowledge. And in order to develop that higher knowledge, then you need that kind of karma abiding or meditative concentration. So that is why in the next word he says, just as the bird with unfledged wings cannot fly through the sky, one who lacks the power of the higher knowledge will be unable to work for being's benefit. So just as the bird whose wings have damaged, they will not be able to fly. If one of their wing is damaged, and then they will, in the same way, without the higher knowledge, without a higher knowledge, it will be, very difficult, if not impossible, to accumulate the both collections. Without that, there is no enlightenment. Also, without the higher knowledge, you will not be able to be great help and benefit to others. Even you want to work for others, even you want to help others, even you want to be benefit for others. If you don't have higher knowledge, then you will be unable to be much help. Your help, your work, your benefit will be very small, very limited. You can still help, you can still be benefit, you can still work for others, but what you can do for them, what you can help for them will be very small and limited without a higher knowledge. On the other hand, if you have higher knowledge, then you can be much more, greater help, greater benefit, and, unlimited help, unlimited benefit, so therefore so here he emphasized on the importance of higher knowledge, the need to develop the higher knowledge. Okay. So then, in order to develop that higher knowledge, then one need to have meditative concentration and karma abiding. Then now he come to that. Also the the merit of single day night gained by one with a higher knowledge is not attained within the 100 lifetimes by one who is without them. So here he also explained again more the importance of that higher knowledge. He said, someone who have higher knowledge, due to that higher knowledge, they can accumulate, incredible amount of merit in one single day or night, where without someone who doesn't have that higher knowledge, where it might require them many lifetimes to accumulate that same amount of merit or the virtues that someone who have higher knowledge is able to develop that. And so again, one can accumulate the virtue, the merit very quickly, very powerfully, easily, swiftly when one have that higher knowledge. And then those who desire to swiftly complete the accumulations, so the collection, accumulating the two collections for the perfect enlightenment, which is needed for the perfect enlightenment, will accomplish this higher knowledge through effort, not through laziness. And so in order to achieve that higher knowledge, then one should develop, meditative concentration, high meditative concentration and karma abiding, meditative concentration and karma abiding, and in order to develop that kind of karma abiding or meditative concentrations, then it requires a lot of effort. It requires a lot of effort, and one need to overcome laziness. With laziness, with the obstacle, without overcoming the obstacle, laziness, and without effort, one will not be able to develop single-pointed concentration, karma abiding. Without that kind of karma abiding, single-pointed concentration, there's no way to achieve higher knowledge. And without higher knowledge, then, it becomes very difficult to benefit others and to achieve enlightenment. So I think I'm going to kind of stop here for today, I guess. So I think I will open for some questions, because any question, any comments, or something to share, please. So anyone has any questions? Yes, please.
Your term marriage, is it?
Not marriage. Marriage? I think that sounds great. That reminds me, one of my teachers, Lama Rinpoche, who is also spiritual director of this organization, this center. He was giving a teaching in Nepal, and he was talking about dependent arising. Dependent arisings. He was teaching maybe 2-3 days dependent arisings, And in the audience, after 3 days, asked next one, why is Tibetan rice so important that he has been talking 3 days? Dependent arising, he heard Tibetan rice. He heard Tibetan rice, the dependent arising as a Tibetan rice. So why is Tibetan rice so important? That he was talking about 3 days. So it became similar here. Merit, M-E-R-I-D-T, merit. Yeah, married, not marriage. Okay. So that becomes a little bit like that. Yeah. So we are talking about married, not marriage. Yeah.
And he asked, why is it so important? Is that what your question?
No, I was thinking of union, knowledge with union, call it marriage. Makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah. A lot of time when you talk about wisdom and merit, sometimes we call also wisdom and method. And wisdom and method, and the method is, like love, compassion, the practice of generosity, being patient, all this come into that part of that practice, merit, part of method practice. So it is a combination or union of wisdom and the method, or wisdom and merit. Yeah. Any others? Does anyone has any?
Yes. Kodo has a question. Please unmute.
Hello.
Okay.
Hello.
Hello,
Geshe.
hello. Estelle. Yeah.
While you're gone for 5 or 6 months, do you have 1, 2, or 3 things for me and whoever wants to really, really, really focus on and work with? Thank you. Excellent question, Kodo.
Well, one of the things is I will encourage people to continue to study. As his own the Lama says, he's 88, coming to 89. He still studies now. He never stops studying. My teacher, who is same age as him, who is the leader of the Gelug lineage, Nandeti Rinpoche, he never stops studying. Still, when I go, he's still studying. And until we become fully enlightened, there's no end to study. Therefore, when we talk about 5 paths, last path, when you become enlightenment, is called path of no more learning. When you become fully enlightened, then you don't have to learn. No more learning. Until then, we need to learn. Even bodhisattvas continue to learn. Even the highest level bodhisattvas, even those who are in Bhumi, 10 Bhumi, they still study and learn. So therefore, I think we shouldn't feel being satisfied because we have studied for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. We continue to study until we become fully enlightened. And so that will be one, and when we study, attending the teachings, listenings, readings, sometimes we get something new things, new kind of information, something that inspires you, something that sometimes we might not, you might not get those things, not every experience, but, that shouldn't stop you from studying, learning, Just like when you go to schools, some days we learn, some days you just feel like you're there, you feel like you didn't learn anything. But that doesn't stop us from going to school. Even when you feel you haven't learned, you are still learning. Just like children, they learn by just, they are not aware they are learning, but they are learning so much by just observations. Seeing everything that is going on, how their parents do everything, what talking, listening. They are not aware they're learning, but they are learning just by observing so many things. Same way, sometimes we are not aware I'm learning anything, but actually listening. And then sometime in the future, something comes, and that the imprint you have, because you have heard about it, because you have seen it, even at that point, you didn't feel like any important at that time, but then suddenly, oh, that is what I saw. oh, that was what I heard at that time, or that is what it is, and you are able to connect, and you have some experiences. And so therefore, to have as many imprint as possible, even if we don't feel like we are learning, to have that imprint is very important. So it makes much more easier in the futures for us to have understanding of that. And I've always shared the stories about, like my parents or many of their generations, from our communities, they go to a lot of teachings. They stay hours, days, weeks, months. They don't understand hardly anything. Language barrier. Because their understanding of Tibetan is very, very small, very little. And there's no one who can teach them in our dialect what they understand, But they joyfully, happily go there because imprint. They want to have the imprint. They want to have as much imprint as possible. So at least even they don't get anything now indirectly or in terms of understanding directly, but that would have they have better chance to in the futures because of that imprint. So so I do believe imprint very important, crucial. Even many of the prayers, verses, things that when I was young, I heard, I memorized, but I don't know any meaning of that. I'm just memorizing because I have to memorize. I'm told to memorize. I've heard many sentences, verses, comments. They keep repeating. We didn't make any sense to me. It's just blah, 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 nothing more than that, But now many of those started to make sense to me, effect of that. And because I've heard that before, because I've seen that before, now is kind of ingrained in my mind, many of those, and with a much more profound understanding of that. So that is imprint. If I didn't have that imprint, I wouldn't have the same understanding or feeling I have at the moment, and so that imprint helped later part in my life. So that is one thing. So that is one thing I wanted to kind of encourage people to continue to, whenever possible, find that time, whether coming in person or joining through Zoom, because we will have a lot of many visiting teachers coming in person or some leading through the Zooms, so there is plenty of opportunity. And so definitely utilize those opportunities, So that is one thing. And, secondly, I think we have, during the weekend, we did on Bodhicitta retreat. And I think if people can focus on the Bodhicitta, that would be great, more study, more reading, more listening on Bodhicittas, practice meditations, and not only just reading, listening, but trying to contemplate, trying to meditate, every day as much as possible. Some days maybe you might be able to meditate for more intensively when you have time, taking more time to really feel it, going point by point, step by step, and when you don't have too much time, still doing those, maybe you might not have time to spend long time going each step by step and spending enough time to each of step to really feel with each of those different step of meditations, but at least trying to do every day little bit, and so I think yeah. Because sense of true love, compassion, bodhicitta is so crucial and important, not only for enlightenment, but even for our happiness, and for the happiness of the sentient beings, especially the happiness of people or beings whom we come in contact. If we are more kind, compassion, with that kind of bodhicitta mind, everyone with whom we come into contact, we can make them more comfortable, more happier, more peaceful, less agitated, even without doing anything, just being there, they can feel the energy. That is how a lot of people feel when they are being around the Lama or many other beings. He doesn't have to do anything. He doesn't have to say anything. There are many like journalists who wanted to interview. They have, they wanted to interview, and they have all cautions and top caution. They wanted to ask this, and they went there in this moment, just being moment, the energy changed totally. All the things they had in their mind, what they wanted to change it, and even without saying anything, even just being that moment present, and that is the energy of true love, compassion, bodhicitta, and so it can make human beings, animal, much more, just being around them peaceful, calm, and kind of happy, and so that is what we need, instead of making others agitated, upset, that is what we do, we are agitated, and that energy make the other person agitated, and that person's energy make another agitated, and then it is, then we have that kind of society, the world agitated, and so we need to kind of cool that energy, and to cool that energy, we start with ourselves. And if we are becoming more kind, compassion, bodhicitta mind, even if we can't do so much, just with that, you can share that energies. People can feel that energies, and so that that is that my advice will be work on that, and wisdom, emptiness, if you can, also as well. So if you can contemplate, meditate every day, if possible, on bodhicitta and the wisdom, the emptiness, then that can be helpful, beneficial. Okay. Okay, so I think, yes, please.
I just want everyone to know that while Geshe is away, we have invited some visiting teachers. And next Sunday, Justin Jenkins will be here. And the following Saturday, he's running a 10-4 workshop. And the following Sunday on the 11th, he'll be here. And then the following Saturday, there's also a workshop. In January, Venerable Rowena will be here in person, doing a weekend retreat, the weekend of January 20th. And Venerable, who's coming in February?
It's Audrey Wilson.
Audrey Wilson will be here in the month of February.
That Geshe Sherab will be March.
Geshe Sherab will be here in March. So keep an eye on our website and our calendar. It will be all updated. And I hope you all can come and support our visiting teachers as well.
Okay, so we can do the dedications.
So we would love on behalf of Tibetan Buddhism to offer a Thanksgiving mandala. Pure formality, but on behalf of all of us. So.
Thank you very much. Do we sa, do we muen se ta tu, ne gyu ji, idam guru lana mandala ka niyataya min.
Thank you, everyone. So now we'll recite the dedication verse. I thought, okay, so. May all beings everywhere plagued by their sufferings and wrong take an ocean of happiness, joy by virtue of my merits. May no living creature suffer, may evil or ever fall. May no one be afraid or belittled with the mind weighed down by affliction. May the blind see forms and the deaf hear sounds. May those whose bodies are worn with toil be restored on finding repose. May the naked find clothing, the hungry find food. May the thirsty find water and delicious drinks. May the poor find wealth, and those deep in sorrow find joy. May the forlorn find hope, constant happiness and prosperity. May there be timely rains and bountiful harvests. May all medicines be effective and wholesome spares their fruit. May all who are sick and ill quickly be free from their ailments. Whatever disease there are in the world, may they be ever. May the frightened cease to be afraid, and those bound be free. May the powerless find power, and may people think of benefiting each other. For as long as space remains, for as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. So then we're going to go to the long life prayers, and I guess we have different prayers on in person and online, so I think we'll just go for this one today. For His Holiness, the wish-granting, wish-fulfilling jewel, source of metaphysical benefit and happiness to this world, to the incomparable kind, sincere justice, I beseech, may all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. To John, and don't bear away, chosen for way on to do. Heart of soul on do shop and show. And for also Gita, Venerable One, to use kindness exceeds that of all comforts for those wanderers in hard places, especially the less. Mine beloved loving concern for us, in intentionally descending again into a family of farthest land, we make this request. Oh Lama, please let them all. Just one.
We don't need to do that.
Okay. We're not screen sharing. Let's stop screen sharing. Thank you. So on behalf of Tibetan Buddhism, we pray for your long life. We will study hard. We can't wait to come back.
So again, I think we haven't had a kind of really formal opening for the centers, and we have asked Rinpoche to come and do the formal grand opening, and I think Rinpoche has accepted to come next year. We haven't had the right date, but we hopefully to get the right date soon, and we will have more. But at the same time, so much effort has been put to have this beautiful place now where we can come together. So many people over the so many years. Since the group was started, the seed was planted. From that on, and so many people that contributed, helped to sustain this, the center. And Rowena was, one, she put so much effort, resource, time for 10, 12 years. She's not with us, but she's one of the main instruments that keep this group going on. We find it's hard to run any non-profit organizations, especially I think, and we find with other directors, after 2-3 years, it's hard for them to continue. And Rowena gave so much for more than 10-12 years. We just understand how much that was when we started to struggle to find a director. And even when we find someone who is unable to last for long times, and so many people, so all the different directors, different spiritual coordinators, all the different board members, and all the different volunteers, and those financially supporting, morally supporting and participating in different programs. So, so many people contributed. So at the moment, we have this beautiful place, and but I think we're, and then of course, all the present and previous board members and directors who have put so much effort to make it happen, to purchase the place and to renovate. Not easy in this time to because of the supply chains and everything's, they're not as smooth as it used to be. So in pandemics, in all of that, they accomplish. Now it's open. We all can see. We all can come together. And so now, because we are placed, we need more volunteers to run it, and we are running out of enough volunteers. It's very few people who are doing, and sometimes I'm afraid they might be burned out. I'm afraid that they can be burned out. So I will request to those who want to volunteer in different areas, they need volunteers, to be able to give your service, volunteer, whatever, whatever you can help, so the center can continue to offer the different programs, and that the people who are running doesn't burn out, so because they have enough help, and so that is one thing I wanted to kind of, request, to, if possible, to be able to provide some, whatever your skills, time, service that they require, they need. I think definitely they really need that. So that is one thing I wanted to say, and of course, as I mentioned, today I'm not going to go in. We will go more details when we have more formal kind of openings, yes.
Also, you can contact me, Charlie, afterward in here. Because Nancy, who is people here, is at Kopan for the teaching. That's normally my contact, but she's not in. So anyway, my email address is whiteravenfeather@gmail.com.
Or yeah, after class maybe.
Or after
class, you can meet her. Yeah. Or maybe send to TNL. I don't know who is.
info@gmail.org.
Who checked that?
I don't know.
Okay. Okay.
See, Matt was, Matt's also.
Yeah.
Or to our dear center, and I'm going to take your center in a minute, our SPC, Federal Dendra, we can also email him. Volunteer. Right, yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.